Hello, I'm Rachel and I'm 35 years old. I had been happily married for 6 years before I found out that my husband was cheating on me. While that in itself was shocking, the way in which I found out was even more absurd. Allow me to tell you my story. I met my ex-husband Joey at college. We shared a few classes and got paired to do a few projects, which is what got us talking. He asked me out on a date and I said yes. That one date turned into many more. We dated for around 4 years after that. At that time, we graduated and moved in together. We spent some time focusing on our careers and we had no concrete plans for marriage, but we did talk about it happening sometime later on. However, when I was 25, I got pregnant with my daughter Noelle. Joey was ecstatic about the pregnancy and so was I. We decided to get married as soon as we could. We got married 3 months after I found out I was pregnant, and then another 5 months later, I gave birth to Noelle. At first, both Joey and I struggled to get used to our new roles as parents. We were constantly sleep deprived and had absolutely zero time to ourselves, especially because we were also working full time. So I decided to take a step back and work only part time. Joey made a little more than I did, and it was the smarter decision. That way, at least, we were able to give each other a break whenever we needed it. Our arrangement worked quite well. In fact, it worked well enough that we decided that we just leave it this way. And that's how it was for the next 4 years. I took care of Noelle the most, while Joey brought home the money and would take care of her on the weekends while I worked. However, things changed suddenly one day for us. It was a regular day. I greeted Joey as he walked through the door after work. "How was work?" "Tiring as usual, but I do have some news." "Oh no, is everything okay?" "Yes, I still have my job, but I got told that I'll be needing to put in more hours." "Okay, how many more hours?" "A few more, and I'll have to be traveling on business trips." "Are they going to be paying you more?" "No." "What? Then how is it fair that they're asking you to do more?" "I know. They promised me a promotion if I prove myself worthy." "That's not good. What if you work like a dog and they never give you a promotion? Did you talk to them about this?" "I did, and they told me that if I had any problems, then I was free to leave." "That's not right." "I know, but what choice do I have? We have a child and I can't afford to lose this job." "You're right, but that doesn't mean that you can't start applying to other jobs." "We'll see about that. I just feel bad because that means that I won't be home a lot." "Hey, that's okay. You're working hard to make sure that we live comfortably. I'll quit my part-time job so I can be more present with Noelle." "I'm sorry that you have to do that." "No, it's okay. These are the struggles that we need to go through to have a better life. You don't need to worry too much. Besides, I have a few friends with connections and I can ask them to ask around for any openings that other companies might have for you." "That would be good. Can we not talk about this for now? I'm already tired and I just want to rest for now." "Of course. I have dinner set for us to have. Go freshen up and come back downstairs." I felt bad that Joey would barely be home. I tried my best to find him other jobs, but Joey always had an issue with them. Eventually, I just gave up on trying to help him. Thankfully, my sister Christina had moved to our city around this time, and I, at least, got to enjoy her company when Joey was not around. Christina and I shared a strong bond, and she really was my best friend. She also spoiled Noelle rotten, but I didn't mind that. Whenever Joey would be gone for days, I'd ask her out to coffee, and we'd spend the evening just having so much fun. And whenever Joey was in town, she'd come over to our place for dinner. Joey and Christina ended up becoming really great friends too, and I remember thinking that I was lucky to have such a tight-knit family. However, just a few months later, I got a call from the hospital telling me that my dad had been admitted there because he passed out from very high blood sugar levels. They told me that he would have to remain there for a few days just for observation and until he was stabilized. I was panicking, so I went to Joey about it. Honey, I just got a call from the hospital. Oh no, is everything okay? Not really. Dad's blood sugar levels shot up like crazy and he passed out. He's there right now and they need him to stay there for a few days just for observation. Is he doing okay though? For now, yes, but his sugar levels have been fluctuating a lot. They're waiting for it to stabilize before they can send him home. Okay, that's not bad. So what are you going to do? Well, I was thinking of going to the hospital and staying with him until he gets discharged. Yes, of course, you should go. Really? Will you be able to look after Noelle? What about work? Obviously, I can take care of her. She's my daughter too. Work can wait for a few days. You just go and make sure that everything is all right with your dad. Yeah, okay. I was just worried because you've been really busy with work and I don't want Noelle to be left alone at all. You don't have to worry about a thing, okay? I'll make sure that Noelle is well taken care of. You only have your dad right now, so you should go take care of him. You're right. I'll call Christina and tell her about the news. She can come around too, and maybe we could switch days so you can work and I can take care of Noelle. I don't think that's a good idea. What? Why? Well, Christina's already going through a rough patch right now, and staying at the hospital with your dad will need her to take off from work, and that's something she can't afford to do. But this is her father. I'm sure she'll want to be there for him. Yeah, but it will also add more stress on her. Why don't you just keep her updated about how things are going, and maybe, if God forbids, things get worse, she can come over then. Fine. I don't have the mental space or energy to look into the rationale of all this. Just take care of Noelle. I'll make a timetable and send it to you. Just follow that, okay? Don't you worry about a thing. Go be with your dad. I'll hold down the fort for a few days. Keep me updated too. I will. Thanks, honey. I was glad that Joey was so understanding of my situation and even more touched to see how much he cared for my sister. I wasted no time in packing myself a bag for the next few days. I texted Christina to let her know the situation with Dad, gave Noelle a kiss goodbye, and made my way to the hospital. When I got there, Dad was asleep, but he was happy to see me when I woke up. The next 3 days were kind of fun for us. I mean, we never got to spend much time together after I moved out, and he was in much better health as the days passed. By the end of it, he was back to being his happy, bubbly self. The day that he got discharged, I dropped him back home and made my way to Noelle's school to pick her up. When she saw me waiting for her in the parking lot, she ran up to me with the biggest smile on her face. Hi, Mommy. Hi, sweetie. How are you? I'm good. How's Grandpa? Grandpa's doing much better now. Yay. Can we go see him soon? Why don't we let Grandpa rest for a few days first? We'll visit him next week, okay? Okay. Did you have fun while Mommy was away? Not really. What? Why? Daddy doesn't play with me like you do. He was always on his phone. Really? Yeah, I was waiting for you to come home so we could watch cartoons together. Oh, sweetie, we'll watch whatever you want. Yay. Did anything else happen? No. Wait, yes, I saw Grandma's ghost. Grandma's ghost? Yeah, Grandma's ghost came to visit Dad. Sweetie, what are you talking about? I came back home from school the day before yesterday and I saw a lady in the house. You saw a woman in the bedroom? Did you recognize her? I didn't see her clearly because she walked into the bedroom. I asked Daddy who she was and he asked me what I was talking about. But I saw a lady, Mommy, I really did. Did you tell Daddy that you saw this lady again? Yes, because I wanted to know who that was. Dad told me then that I must have seen the ghost of my grandma. Dad told me that Grandma was here because she was worried about Grandpa and that she rushed out of heaven when she heard that Grandpa was in hospital. She was staying with us because the hospital wouldn't let her stay there. Oh, wow, that's quite a story. Are you sure you saw a lady in the house? Yes, Mommy, I promise. All right, that's enough of that. Mommy's getting kind of scared. How about we get back home and watch cartoons now? Okay. I didn't understand what Noelle was talking about and decided to think about it later. I gave her the day she wanted and eventually put her to bed. Joey had gone on a business trip that morning after dropping Noelle at school. But as I tried to fall asleep, I found myself thinking about what Noelle had said. My mother passed away a year after Noelle was born. I was very close to her, and while the thought seemed touching, I didn't believe in ghosts, not to mention it was Joey who fed her that story. Eventually I fell asleep and decided that if I still couldn't stop thinking about it the next morning, I'd look into it. The next morning, I dropped Noelle off at school. When I came back home, I realized that I had been thinking about Noelle's ghost story all day. I had a strong feeling in my gut that something was very wrong. I felt like Joey was lying to me about something. So I opened Joey's laptop to find his phone. I was beyond confused to see his phone still in our city. He had told me that he was going to New York. I zoomed in a little more on the actual location of his phone and I was shocked to see that he was at my sister's house. My head was spinning. Why would he have to lie about that? I then did something I was not proud of. I went through his messages and his social media. That was where I found my smoking gun. Hundreds, if not thousands of messages between the two of them, almost all of them explicit. The few that weren't explicit were about how they had so much fun with each other the last time they met. I kept scrolling and scrolling until I found when it all started. It started when Christina moved here. The business trips were just Joey's pathetic excuse to go over and stay with Christina. My entire world shattered at that moment. There was only one person I could go to about the whole thing, and that was my dad. I somehow made the drive to his place with tears flowing down my cheeks. When he opened the door to me, he was shocked to see me sobbing. "Sweetie, hi, what's wrong? Come in." "I don't know anymore, Dad. I really don't." "Okay, just cry it all out. I'm right here for you." "I just found out something so vile and disgusting that I don't even know how to feel right now other than hurt. Where do I even begin if I want to tell you what I found out?" "Why don't you tell me how it all started?" "Well, when I returned back after staying with you at the hospital, I went to pick Noelle up from school and she told me that she had seen Mom's ghost at home." "What?" "Yeah, and when I asked her to explain it to me, she told me that she had seen a woman at home and that Joey had told her that it was Mom's ghost who came to visit you and was staying with us because she couldn't stay at the hospital." "I don't like where this is headed, and I definitely don't like that he's using my wife as a cover-up." So I followed him around and found out that he's been cheating on me with Christina. "What?" "I looked through their messages and this has been going on for 6 months, right around the time that Joey got really busy with work. I don't know what to do anymore." "Hold on. Is that why your sister never visited me at the hospital?" "Yeah. He was the one who convinced me not to call Christina over to the hospital when you were sick, because he didn't want her stressed out. But really, he just wanted to get in her pants. I feel so sick." "This is absolutely unacceptable. Sweetie, I'm so sorry this is happening to you. Do you want me to have a word with Christina?" "What will that do? That won't erase any of this pain." "Okay, then how about we get some revenge?" "Revenge? Isn't that like childish?" "Who cares? They didn't care about you, or the fact that you and Joey have a child, or the fact that Noelle saw Christina and they were sleeping around when Noelle was at home. It's time to stand up for yourself and Noelle." "You know what? You're right. Will you help me plan this revenge out?" "Absolutely. How about we grab lunch together and discuss this?" I was so grateful that Dad understood me much better than I understood myself. Of course, on any regular day, I would never have agreed to take revenge, but this was different. This was a betrayal of another kind entirely, a betrayal that needed to be rewarded with pain. Over lunch, Dad and I devised our plan. The first order of business was for me to get a job. That way, I could ask for a divorce, move out, and still have the means to stay on my feet. So after a few long conversations with Joey, which were just mostly working out how to take care of Noelle, I started working again. Then the next phase was to start the filing process. I also aimed to get full custody of Noelle, so I needed to document Joey's neglect of Noelle. That wasn't very hard. I just had to screenshot all of our conversations and record a few phone calls where he bailed at the last minute for work. Not to mention, I did have some baby monitors still set up, and they recorded how even when it was just Joey and Noelle together, he'd ignore her to watch his shows. Lastly, I was going to expose Joey on his birthday in front of all his family and friends. I talked really big about this party with Joey. He got really excited about it, and I couldn't wait to destroy all that happiness. I invited all his friends and family, and even some of my family, including Christina, a month before his birthday, just so everyone could clear their schedules and make it. On the day of the party, I dropped Noelle off at my dad's after telling Joey that his party was a kid-free one. I didn't want her to witness any of the ugliness that was about to unfold. The party began with Joey cutting his cake and then carried on with everyone giving him their presents. I waited to get to the end. I made sure that he was beyond happy just so I could watch it crumble down to nothing. Okay, it's my turn to give you a gift. Oh, you didn't have to. I really did. What's this? I'm sure you can read it, Joey. Why are you divorcing me? Because I know. No? About what? Everyone. I've just sent you a file. Why don't you take a look at it and see what my dear husband has been up to in the last 8 months? What's going on? What's going on is that I just sent everyone proof of you cheating on me with my sister. What? I didn't. Save it, Joey. While I was worried for my dad, you brought my sister into our house and into our bedroom to sleep with you. What's worse is that Noelle was here and you lied to her about what was going on. Did you have no shame at all? Okay, look, it was a one-time thing. Don't even. I know that you've been seeing her since April. What did you expect? You weren't giving him any attention. So you thought that you could just weasel yourself in and sleep with my husband? I'm sorry, okay? It was a mistake. You can't leave me. Oh, I most definitely can. You left me alone for days because you had work trips. Hell, you left me alone when I was sick. I had to take care of Noelle all by myself, and I never got a break because you were too busy cheating on me. It was a moment of weakness. I was feeling really neglected, and she just got me. I know it's wrong, but I guess I should have resisted all the temptations and just talked to you about it. You guess you should have? Do you have any idea how insensitive you sound? You ruined our whole family, our relationship, because you couldn't resist your temptations, and you guess you should have talked to me? Fine, I should have. I'm sorry. I promise I'll work on myself. I'll be better. Just please don't leave me. I can't live without you. You're my world. Don't be corny. You show me that I don't matter to you at all. So, what? You arranged this entire party for me just to humiliate me? Of course, you humiliated me in the worst way, and this is the least that I could have done. I have all my things packed, and Noelle will live with me at my dad's. You can't take my daughter from me. I will not let that happen. You can't be trusted. You ignored her the entire time I left you with her because you were too busy with Christina. Not to mention the fact that you were never very present to begin with. I'm going to make sure I get full custody, and there's nothing you can do about it. Please don't do that, please. Feel free to contact my lawyer if you need to speak to me. I walked out of that house, and I felt like a huge weight had been lifted off my shoulders. Not to mention, I felt like I was in a movie because everyone just stared at me as I walked out. Joey kept trying to call out to me and kept begging me to stay with him, but I just walked out and didn't stop to listen to him. When I finally got back to Dad's place, I finally processed the entire thing. Joey didn't even have a valid reason to cheat on me. He just felt sorry because I caught him and was leaving him. If I hadn't caught or left him, he would have continued to have an affair with Christina. That hurt like crazy to think about. I mean, they were the two most important people in my life after my dad and Noel. I couldn't understand how they could treat me so poorly. A few hours after I got back from Joey's party, Christina came over to yell at me for embarrassing Joey. Before I could even say anything, Dad interjected and told her that she had no right to yell at me and my actions when she was the one who was sleeping with my husband. She had nothing more to say to that. Dad asked her to never speak to him because he felt disgusted that he raised a daughter like her. I knew it pained Dad to say it, but he told me later on that he meant every word. He raised me right, and it showed. He raised Christina in the same way as me, but she chose to be different and worse. That was not okay with Dad. Joey's pathetic pleas for me to come back quickly evolved into anger over the next few days. He would text me to cuss me out for embarrassing him and ruining his social life. None of his friends wanted anything to do with him, and his parents disowned him. If there was one thing his mother could not tolerate, it was cheaters. She called me later on to apologize for Joey's actions, but I told her she had nothing to apologize for. It was hard explaining things to Noel, but she understood it eventually. Every now and then she'd ask to meet Joey, and I'd take her to the park and ask Joey to meet us there. He'd use that time to beg me to be with him rather than spend time with Noel. Eventually, she understood that time with Joey wasn't actually any time with him, so she stopped asking to see him. The divorce and the child custody battle took well over a year to get over, but when it did, I was granted full custody of Noel, and Joey was granted visitation every weekend. I was just glad to be done with everything because that meant I could move on to better things for me and Noel. It's been a few years since everything got settled, and I've been having a blast. I now work a good job. My dad and Noel are the best of friends, and Noel practically considers Dad to be her father figure too. Joey and Christina stopped seeing each other shortly after they were exposed for their affair, but it's safe to say that neither of them has many of their friends left by their side. Oh well, I guess that's the price you pay when you mess around. Thanks for listening. Hello, I'm Fia and I'm 26 years old. I had a very hard life growing up. My dad did not make it any easier for me, and in fact was the source of all the troubles I had. But recently karma came back to him so hard I can't help but laugh. So allow me to share my story with you. Everything began with my mom passing away. Before that, we were your normal, average American family. My dad, Hector, doted on my older brother, Sean, a little more, but he never really played favorites. But after my mom passed away when I was 12 and my brother was 18, things took a bad turn, to say the very least. Suddenly, my dad was always picking on me. Not for any other reason, but because Sean didn't like it. I had to do everything in a manner that would not upset Sean, or I would get grounded. Dad would never say a word against Sean if he did something bad. In fact, he'd find a way to somehow blame that on me. As I grew older, my dad began making me do all the household chores. Keep in mind that he never once asked Sean to do it. He'd let Sean do whatever he wanted, and God forbid Sean did something himself, because if he did, Dad would get mad at me for making Sean work so hard. When I turned 15, Dad had me find a job because he was apparently tired of paying for me. However, of course, he was never tired of paying for any of Sean's things. Hell, he never even asked Sean to get a job even though he was a grown adult by this point. I kept my mouth shut and found myself a job. However, I could barely keep or use any money that I had left over because Sean would ask me to give it to him. If I said no, Dad would get upset with me and threaten to take all of my money. So, by this point, not only was I studying in school, but I was also juggling work and household chores. I was exhausted, and it was beginning to show in the way that I was constantly falling sick. Dad never cared enough about it, except, and I vividly remember this, when one day he got my report card. "I got your report card." "Oh, that's good. How did I do?" "Care to explain why you got a B in history?" "Well, I was sick a few weeks ago, remember? I couldn't make the deadline for an assignment because of it." "That is not a valid reason at all." "What do you want me to say? That's the only reason I have." "You're grounded." "What? That's not fair." "What's not fair is me working my head off to give you a good education and you not delivering good results." "That's not true at all. A B is hardly a bad grade. Besides, Sean never brought home grades that were anything above a C. You never grounded him." "He's different." "I know, and you show that to me every single day. You let Sean get away with a lot because he's your favorite. If I did even a quarter of the things Sean did, you'd ground me for life." "Maybe you'd be my favorite if you actually showed me that you had something to favor." "Excuse me? I did everything around this house while studying and working. Sean does nothing but play his stupid video games all day long. You're being very mean." "You don't get to talk to me like that. You're doing what you have to do. Your brother is going through a rough time and it's disgusting that you're putting him down for it." "Sean got fired from his job for stealing. How is he going through a rough time?" "I have not raised you to go against your family like this. If I hear another word against Sean, I will ground you for 2 more weeks." "I wish Mom was here. She'd definitely give you hell for how you're treating me." I stormed over to my room with tears in my eyes. I had never said a word against Dad before, when he used to be hypocritical. But that day, I just snapped and talked back to him. I mean, what was it going to matter anyway? I was grounded, so I might as well let him know about how I felt. After that, I would just talk back to my dad and Sean. I was beginning to see that ever since I started talking back, they backed off a little. That didn't mean that they stopped yelling at me. Sean realized that if he just complained to my dad instead of talking to me, I'd get punished. So that's what he started doing. I'd have no idea if I did something wrong until Dad came back home from work. He got to a point where I was constantly anxious and tried my best to stay out of Sean's way. But that did not end well. It was a week before my finals when I got kicked out. That day I informed Dad that I would be spending my day studying at the library. Dad barely bothered, so I went. And when I came back, Dad was very angry. "Where were you?" At the library. I was studying for my finals. I told you this." "No, you didn't." "Right before I left for school, I dropped by your room to tell you that. You were on your phone at that time and you replied with, 'Whatever.'" "I don't talk like that." "Dad, I'm really tired. Can I please just go to bed?" "No. Do you know what you've done?" "Huh? No." "I had my big interview today." "Oh yeah? How was it?" "I couldn't go because of you." "Because of me? How did you draw that conclusion?" "I asked you to wash my blazer and work pants, and today I found them at the bottom of the laundry pile and they smelled so bad. No amount of deodorant or perfume took away that smell." "Which meant that he couldn't go for his interview." "First of all, I asked you to give me the clothes you wanted to get washed for weeks. You never gave them to me. Secondly, couldn't you have borrowed something from Dad? Dad has a lot of suits and pants and you guys are practically the same size." "We didn't ask for your nonsense solutions right now. This is about you being irresponsible. So what if Sean didn't give you the blazer? Couldn't you have gone into his room and taken it?" "The last time I did that, he got mad at me and then you yelled at me for violating his privacy." "What was I supposed to do, huh?" "You just always have a convenient excuse, don't you? You need to pay up for the job you cost me." What do you mean? I didn't do anything. Exactly, you didn't do anything. And you know what? I'm tired of you never doing things right. You're worthless. You've done nothing but make things worse for us. What? I don't want you living with us anymore. I want you out, first thing in the morning. But I've nowhere to go. I have no money. You can't kick me out. Well, tough. You should have thought about that before ruining your brother's future. You can't blame me for his mistakes. You can't keep taking his side forever. When will you learn that I'm not taking sides? All I'm seeing is you being jealous of your brother, and so you're sabotaging him. And that is not something I'm okay with. I told you before that family comes first, and what you did today showed me that you don't believe that. If family come first, then you wouldn't be kicking your teenage daughter out of the house for something she did not do. That is enough. Now go to your room. I don't want to see your face anymore. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Dad was kicking me out, all because I didn't wash Sean's clothes. I had no money to my name whatsoever. In fact, what little money I had left over from my last pay, Sean took it from me just the previous day. I went up to my room and just sobbed. I felt like crap because I did everything I could to please both of them, and the one time I was in the right, Dad called me worthless and resorted to throwing me out. The thought of being homeless began to make me panic. My mind went to a lot of dark places very fast. I could barely breathe. But I somehow remembered my Aunt Vivian. She was the only person who actually understood me. Vivian is my dad's younger sister, and she lived half an hour away from us, and she was my rock after my mom died. She hated the way that my dad and brother treated me, and so she would help me out in any way she could. She would let me stay over at her place for 1 week a month just to give me a break from the toxic environment of my home. Of course, I would come back home to an absolute mess that I would be required to clean by the end of the day, but that was worth the mental break I got when I went away. I'm so grateful that I managed to remember her in my moment of panic, because if I didn't, I think I would have made some pretty bad decisions at that point. I called her and told her everything that had happened through sobs, and she was appalled at my dad. But she told me that she would take care of me. She told me that I was more than welcome to live with her if I wanted, and I took her up on that offer. I actually slept really well for the first time in a long while because I was happy that I was going to be away from my dad and brother. The next morning, Aunt Vivian showed up at the door while I was packing my things. Dad answered the door. Vivian, what are you doing here? You're throwing Thea out? Ugh, what sob story did she tell you? You have no idea how she messed up this time. I think I do. You're throwing her out because she didn't wash Sean's clothes for his interview. Yeah, can you believe it? That girl does nothing all day, and when we ask her to do one thing, she either never does it or she messes it up. I'm tired of it. Sean's also been so upset about it that he's locked himself up in his room. What do you mean that they don't do anything? That girl is working herself to the bone because of you. I bet that's one of the many lies she's fed you. Look, this is not your place to interfere. No, it is my place. That is my niece. You were not the one who had to calm her down last night, and she never told me about anything. I see it. I see the way that you coddle Sean and barely even look at Thea. I see the way you spoil Sean with everything he wants while you make the work so hard for everything she does. So, she's going to need these skills in the future. Might as well start learning them early on. So, Sean doesn't need these skills? He does, but he already knows them. Are you sure? Because your grown son couldn't do the laundry himself when he does nothing all day. I'll bet that he purposely missed that interview because he'd much rather mooch off of you for the rest of his life than work. He used Thea as the scapegoat so you wouldn't get upset with him. How are you not seeing any of this? Listen, I know that Thea's your favorite, but that does not mean that you get to talk bad about Sean. You can believe whatever you want, but you don't live with us. And you have no idea how things work on the inside. If you're done yelling at me for nothing, you can leave. No, I'm here for Thea. What do you mean? She's going to live with me from here on. At least I'll be able to give her a better life than whatever you've been giving her. Ha! Good luck with that one. Don't come crying to me when you want her off your hands, because I'm not taking her back in. You are a horrible father, and even more of a horrible man. Sean will screw you over one day, and then you'll realize how much you wronged Fia, and you'll feel sorry. Don't ever think that Fia will forgive you for it. Sean could never do anything wrong to me, and I'll live without Fia's forgiveness. Get her out as soon as you can and let yourselves out. Dad turned around and walked back into the house. He and Aunt Vivian were having this conversation by the front door, and I was walking down the stairs at that point. So I heard the entire thing. I felt like a dagger went through my heart when my dad said all those mean things about me. Not only did he completely undermine all the hard work I did, but he also believed that Aunt Vivian would want to abandon me. Aunt Vivian noticed me and her anger softened. I walked over to her and she hugged me tightly. She silently took me back to her place where she sat me down and assured me that she would never abandon me. She apologized for never having done much for me before, but I told her she did more than she could ever have imagined. Aunt Vivian let me stay in for the rest of the week and took me out to a lot of places just to pamper me. I got a haircut, a lot of new clothes and shoes, a mani-pedi, and I got to eat all my favorite foods. The next thing that Aunt Vivian did for me was get me into therapy. After hearing me on the phone that day, she got scared out of her mind for me and asked me if I could talk about these things with a therapist. Of course I wanted to do it, and I slowly began to feel better. My life slowly started getting better after I started staying with Aunt Vivian. She helped me find a better job and made me work fewer hours. She was a lawyer, so she made more than enough money to sustain me and herself. She took care of me in every way she could. When it came time to go to college, she helped me find the best college for me and even paid for the entire thing. After I graduated, I found a good job and finally moved out of Aunt Vivian's place. Although I always made it a point to visit her every other day, I cannot even begin to express how grateful I am for everything she did. So I did my best to let her know in whatever little way I could. Before I knew it, 10 years had passed since my dad kicked me out. I mean, every now and then I would think about Dad and Sean, but never enough to actually make an effort to search for them. I knew who my real family was, and I kept her close to me. But then I got a call from an unknown caller. I didn't usually entertain those calls, but this number kept calling over and over again, so I picked up and was beyond surprised to hear my dad on the other side. Hello? Fia, sweetie, it's me, Dad. Oh, hey, what do you want? Nothing, I just wanted to check in on you. Are you doing okay? Cut to the chase, Dad. You need something? I don't want any of your fake concerns and care. Okay, fine. I need you to help me with something. Why don't you ask your precious Sean to help you out? That's the thing. He's the one I need to get away from. What? What do you mean? Please save me from your devil brother. I never knew that he was this bad. What are you going on about? After you left? You mean after you kicked me out? Fine, after I kicked you out. Sean became so much worse. He got harder and harder to be around because he would constantly lose his temper at the smallest things. Without you to take the fall, I was on the receiving end of it. At least you acknowledged that I was being treated badly by Sean. And then things got even worse. He got into some really bad company. I don't even know how. All I knew was that his friends were constantly over and they would sit in the basement for hours at a time. I don't see how that's a bad thing. Turns out they were doing drugs in there, like the very hard kind. Oh, wow. The thing is, somebody ratted out Sean's dealer and the police are looking into everyone who purchased from the dealer. Sean used my card several times to make transactions, and now I may become a suspect. And you expect me to help you out? How? I can't say anything to the police. Well, I told Sean that he had to take the fall if anything happened, and he refuses to do it. He told me that he'd do anything to not go to prison, even if that meant purposely throwing me under the bus. I'm not surprised. You know you enabled this behavior in him, and now it's come back to bite you in the worst way possible. I know, I was a horrible dad. I just need you to give me some money so I can get away from here. Turns out Sean used up all my money to fund his addiction. I have absolutely nothing to my name except for this house. You have to help me get out of here, please. I actually don't have to help you with anything. You made your decisions long ago, and now you need to deal with them. Besides, I'm way too worthless to help you out. I said I was sorry. Well, sorry will never bring back the years of my life that I spent being tortured by you and Sean, will it? So you're just going to let your dad go to prison for a crime he didn't commit? You may not have committed the crime, but you definitely were involved in it. You taught Sean that you'd always let him get away with anything. You'd punish anyone but him for his wrongs. And now that you have no one to punish, you're the one that's going to face the consequences. I can't believe that you're turning your back on me when I most need it. You did the same to me. You told Aunt Vivian that you could live without my forgiveness, right? Then live by it. I don't owe you anything. You need to deal with the consequences of your horrible actions. I wish you nothing but luck. Never contact me again. Bye. I hung up on my dad after that and blocked his number. My hands were shaking. I couldn't believe what Dad told me. I mean, was there a chance that Dad was only making the entire thing up because Sean must have just been stealing from him and he needed a crazy enough excuse for me to send him money? Yeah, but Dad sounded so distressed over the phone that I couldn't help but think that whatever he was saying was true. I also didn't like how he involved me in his issue now. If the police did want to find him, I'd be on his contact list and I will be involved. I was happy not knowing where he was for the last 10 years, and even if I did get curious every once in a while about how he was doing, I never wanted him to reach out to me like this. The first thing I did after I spoke to Dad was go over to Aunt Vivian's and tell her what had happened. She was furious with Dad for not involving me in things and assured me that nothing bad would happen to me. She told me that if I ever get questioned, I need to ask her before answering anything, and also to never try to contact my dad in any way. I wasn't planning on that anyway because I wanted nothing to do with that man. For the next few days I was racked with anxiety and paranoia. And then the police did eventually come to see me. Thankfully, Aunt Vivian decided to stay with me for a few weeks just in case something happened, so she was there with me. They told me that they had pulled out my dad's call records and that I was the second last person he talked to before he ran away. I told them in full detail about what the conversation was and also explained my history with him. The police got whatever they wanted out of me, thanked me, and left. I don't know where my dad secured the money he needed from, but truthfully, I didn't care. I was angry that, yet again, even after 10 years of no contact, Dad still managed to mess up my life. I was just glad that things were finally catching up to him and he was finally being taught a lesson. I don't know what happened to Dad, but I do know that Sean ended up getting arrested. He, too, called me crying, but I ended that conversation way quicker than I did with Dad. They proved themselves to be selfish men all over again, and I was prepared to leave them behind in the past. I'm still reeling from what had happened with Sean and my dad. I mean, I expected things to be bad for them, but never this bad. It took a while for me to be able to think of anything. But that, especially because there would be times when I felt guilty for not helping Dad out. But then I'd remind myself that he had no issue throwing his 16-year-old daughter out because she didn't satisfy his son's wants. That was enough to vanish the guilt. I've learned to put everything that happened in the past, especially because now I have the closure I always needed. I'm moving on to better things, and life has been treating me really well. I look forward to whatever else life has to throw my way. Thanks for listening. Hey there, I'm Vanessa and I'm a 35-year-old woman. Today I want to talk to you about my lying, cheating ex-husband and how I managed to shut down his dreams without him ever figuring out that it was me who did it. Let me begin by introducing you to my ex-husband, Alec. Alec and I met at a bar. There was some event happening and we got to talking with each other. We exchanged phone numbers, which led to us going on a few dates before making the relationship official. Alec and I had good chemistry. Alec was kind and caring, and he had a great sense of humor. I loved that he took things a little cooler than I did, and I always thought that it provided us with the perfect balance. We dated for around 2 years before deciding that we wanted to get married. After we got married, I got quite a large amount of money from my grandparents. I already had a savings account, so it went in there. This savings account existed only because I believed it was better to have at least something to fall back on in case of an emergency. The last thing I'd want is to be stranded with no help whatsoever. I didn't tell anyone about the savings I had. I started saving money when I was 18 and I opened the account all on my own. But I had to tell Alex about these savings when I got the money from my grandparents because he would not stop making plans for how we could spend all the money. I wouldn't have minded spending that money on something we actually needed, but Alec wanted to spend it on buying another car or on moving to a better place. These were just luxuries he wanted and not needed. When Alec found out about my savings, he got upset that I had never told him about the account, but eventually agreed that it was my money and I got to do with it whatever I wanted. Alec stopped bringing up my savings and that was it, or so I thought. About a year into our marriage, Alec's friends came to our town and he went out drinking with them. I didn't mind that, but what I did mind was the fact that Alec began behaving differently after that. Suddenly, he was a lot more quiet and he barely paid me any attention. Every time I tried to talk to him about his behavior, he would brush me off. So eventually, I decided to just give him his space and hope that he would just come to me on his own. Thankfully, he did. Something's been on my mind and I need to talk to you about it. Oh, what is it? Remember how I went to meet some of my friends 2 weeks ago? Yes, you've been different ever since that night. Well, my friends and I got to talking about our dreams and how far we've gotten with achieving them. Oh, that's nice. What was your dream? This is kind of embarrassing, but I've always wanted to own my own restaurant. Really? I don't think that's embarrassing at all. Really? You think so? Yeah, I mean, if I had the management skills, I'd want to open my own restaurant as well. Yeah, well, I think I do, and I really want to get started on making that dream a reality. That's great, but how do you plan on funding it? That's where I hoped you'd help me. What do you mean? It's just that all my friends are at least somewhere on their way to achieving their dreams. I'm the only one that hasn't begun to work on it. But I can't even be upset with myself about it because I never had the money to invest in it. So I was wondering if you'd be willing to invest in me. Alec, do you have a plan in mind? Do you have any projections of how you expect the business to run? No, but does that matter? Of course it does. I can't blindly invest in you. Why not? I'm your husband and you have a huge amount of savings. Just because you're my husband and I have money, it doesn't mean that I should just spend all that money on something that I don't even know will succeed. Are you trying to tell me that you don't believe in me at all? I'm not. All I'm asking is that you give me a concrete plan to invest in. I don't want to invest in literally an idea. So if I come up with a good business plan, you'll invest in my business? It will definitely raise the chances of that happening. But that's enough about that for now. How about we eat dinner? Alec was upset that I wasn't readily accepting to spend my money on him. But what was I supposed to do? These are large amounts of money that I can't afford to lose. Not to mention, I saw the way that Alex spends his money. He has absolutely no care in the world when it comes to money. That is why his parents cut him off financially and he was broke at the end of each month, despite making a little more money than me. Alec was curt with me for the next 6 months. It hurt to see that Alec didn't see where I was coming from and that he was willing to treat me differently just because I didn't want to spend money on his dream. But 6 months later, Alec came up to me with a business plan. He planned to open up a pizzeria and planned to make it a fancy, family-style dine-in area. I was impressed, although I didn't think it was still a good idea. So when Alec asked me how I liked the plan, I told him as such. How do you like the plan? It's not bad, but I don't know if it's smart to invest right now. What do you mean? Weren't we just talking about having kids? I was kind of hoping to use the money I have as a fallback for our kids. You're valuing our non-existent kids over my dreams? I'm just being logical about this. Besides, a lot of your projections seem like a stretch. And our locality has enough pizzerias. It'll take you a while to break even. Look, I'm just trying to do the best with what I can. I'll expand the menus and find the best sellers to source my ingredients. I promise I'll make it work. I believe you, I do, but this just seems a bit much, no? Why don't we wait a bit and we'll make that decision? Do you not believe in me? Why are you not investing in me? I do believe in you. I just don't think this is a smart decision. How is it not a smart decision? You have no experience in the restaurant business. You've never been around people that have their own restaurants. Maybe you should try and get some hands-on experience first. This just seems like you're coming up with stupid reasons to not invest. If you don't want to invest, just say it outright. It's not that. It's just a large amount of money for me to invest in something that may not be as successful as you hope. But isn't that what we're supposed to do as spouses? We support each other no matter what. Sure, but that does not mean that I support you when you do something wrong, right? So you think what I dream of is wrong? You're twisting my words. I love you and I want to support everything you want to do. But I can't do that if it means that we're jeopardizing our future. The money in my savings could be used as a fallback if either of us begins struggling. It could be a part of a college fund for our children. The point is, that's a large amount and I'm just not comfortable with using it to fund your business. What if I gave you shares in it? I expect to have shares if I'm going to invest. You know what? Why don't you give me some time to think about this? Please, this would make me so incredibly happy and I promise that I will not make you regret it. Okay, then let me draw up the contracts and we'll figure it out from there. So you'll do it? I might. Let's just see how things go with the paperwork. I felt like I was making a horrible decision, like my gut was screaming at me not to invest in him. Not because I didn't love him, but because he had no idea what he was doing. But at the same time, he was my husband and I loved him. I wanted to support him in every way that I could. I also knew that I couldn't do that at the cost of myself. So the next day, I went to a lawyer friend's place and asked for their advice. They helped me draft up a contract for how things should work when I invest in Alec. If there was one thing I knew for certain, it was that I was not going to be the only investor. So I sat Alec down and told him that he needed to find another investor. He told me that he spoke with his parents and they'll be willing to have some stake in the business. I was glad that it got out of the way. We worked on all the legal aspects and I made sure that none of my terms had any loopholes that could be exploited. I know I sound like I never trusted Alec to begin with, but the truth is, I've seen how business changes people. It's happened in my family and the last thing I'd want is to be screwed over if things go south. Anyways, after we signed our contracts, we found a place that we could buy to set the restaurant up. Over the next year, there were renovations and a lot of research on suppliers and employees. Eventually, we had a grand opening of the restaurant and it was gorgeous. I actually was hopeful that things would go according to plan. The business did well for exactly 10 months before things started to go south. Alex stopped paying as much attention to things. The food coming out of the kitchen always tasted bad, and the customer service was terrible. Even though I wanted no part in the business, I wanted Alec to still have his dream, and I didn't want any of my money to go to waste. So I stepped in and took over. I did everything except for the cooking of the food. I cleaned the kitchen, did the admin work, did the accounts, was the HR, managed the front of the house, managed the kitchen, you name it. I did it. And I juggled that with my day job. I was being stretched absolutely thin. Alec and I began to fight a lot as well. I would get so mad at him for not doing anything in his own restaurant, and he would always tell me that he was having a rough time mentally. Eventually, I just gave up and waited for him to feel better or until I broke even so I could sell the place and move on. One day, I came back home early because I wasn't feeling all too well. The stress was catching up to me and I just needed to rest. But when I entered the house, I could hear the sounds of a woman coming from our bedroom. My heart shattered when I opened the door and saw my husband in our bed, sleeping with the waitress in our restaurant. She squealed when she saw me and ran into our bedroom. Before I could help myself, I asked Alec what was going on. "What is this?" Hey, this is a bit awkward. You're cheating on me? With your employee, no less? She was there for me when you weren't. When was I not there for you, Alec? When? I mean, you have to admit that you've been a bit absent as of late. Yes, because I've been busy managing your restaurant. I did all of that only for you to cheat on me with someone who works for you at a restaurant that I paid for. Well, what do you expect? When you're not there to satisfy me, I'm bound to find satisfaction elsewhere. Is that how it is? You found satisfaction in a woman who's 10 years younger than you? You were just as pretty when you were younger. You just let yourself go recently. Are you actually being serious right now? All I'm saying is that you can't blame me for what happened. You should have been the one that looked after me too. You neglected me, and I found attention where I could. I'm not your mother. Why am I responsible for looking after you? You're a grown man. Do you really see no wrong in what you did? I may be a grown man, but I am a man that has needs. Needs which you weren't meeting. You can't pin the blame on me. That's absolutely crazy. Do you even care that you ruined our relationship? I mean, kind of. Kind of? Kind of? I sacrificed everything for you. I gave up everything I had just to make sure that you got what you wanted. Does that mean nothing? That's the only reason I feel bad. I mean, I kept my promise about making sure the business never failed, but I did make you regret it in the end after all. But then again, you let me down too, so we'll just call it even. How is that even close to things being even? You've crapped all over everything I did for you and all over our relationship. The least you could do was at least show some remorse. I would love to feel some remorse, I do, but I guess that I've lost feelings. And I believe I deserve better than this. I just did what I had to do. You couldn't have had this conversation with me before cheating on me? Did you have to break my heart this way? You defiled our marital bed and you feel nothing? I'm sorry, I guess. You know what? You're right. I'm the idiot for ever believing that you'd be capable of thinking about anyone but yourself. You're a disgusting man who can never see or accept why he's wrong. Right. Get all of this out of your system. I'm going to go now, but I hope you know that you're making the worst mistake of your life. I could barely think straight. I walked in on my husband cheating on me, and he had the nerve to not even apologize or feel bad for it. He tried to lob it off on me, and for a second, I actually did feel like I was the one at fault. But the more I heard him talk to me nonchalantly, the angrier I got. I couldn't believe that it was so easy for him to just throw away our years of relationship, all because he had some needs that had to be taken care of. The excuse is also just so pathetic. None of the men in my life had ever cheated on their wives because their needs weren't being met. I rushed out of the house with a bag full of my clothes and some essentials, got in my car, and drove away. I didn't know where I was going, but all I knew was that I was going to go as far away as possible from Alec. I ended up driving around the city for about an hour before finally going to stay with my parents. They welcomed me with open arms and gave me a shoulder to cry on. They were very upset that Alec cheated on me and didn't even feel sorry about it. They wanted to have a word with him, but I knew from experience that it would go nowhere. The only place it could go was my dad giving Alec a black eye. But thinking about my dad hitting Alec, I suddenly had an idea. I knew the perfect way to get rid of him. Since I owned half of the company and his parents the other half, I decided to sell my part of it. I knew all about the ins and outs of the restaurant. I knew that Alec wasn't correctly recording the figures just so he could bypass some fees and taxes. The best time to strike would be now because I'd get my money back in full. Alec's parents were more than happy to buy out my share. They had no idea about what was happening, and I didn't want to be the one that broke it to them. Once I got all my money back, I made an unknown tip to the health inspection office and informed them of the filthy kitchens and unhygienic conditions of the kitchen. I knew for a fact that if it wasn't for me, that place would be infested with all sorts of things, and mold would be growing wherever it could. The last thing I ever wanted to do for Alec after he showed no remorse or guilt was let him enjoy the fruits of my labor. I was going to make him pay. In the meantime, Alec signed for a divorce and we decided to have everything split equally. I signed the divorce papers and I was officially done. About a week after I called in the tip, I finally got some news, and the news came to me from none other than Alec. I ignored his calls initially, but then I gave in and picked up. Vanessa, hi. Don't hang up on me right now. Why shouldn't I? Look, I'm in some big trouble. I don't see how this is a reason for me to not hang up on you. Please, just hear me out. I'm giving you 5 minutes. Make it quick. I was not at the restaurant today and I got a call around noon that the health inspectors had come to visit the restaurant based on an anonymous tip. Ooh, I bet that the state of the kitchen was definitely not okay in their eyes. It wasn't. And I should have listened to you, not to mention I hadn't been reporting the correct income, so I got slapped with fraud too. I would say that I was surprised by your actions, but you really showed me that you were capable of anything. You don't have to keep beating down on me. I already feel like crap. I still don't see why I needed to get a call about this. I wanted to tell you that the restaurant is getting shut down because there were just too many health code violations. I have no money to my name. I'm flat out broke. I need your help. Hard pass. What? You can't just say hard pass and go. Alec, name one good reason why I should even consider helping you. We were together for 6 years. You knew me better than anyone else. Don't you feel even an ounce of sympathy for me? I thought I knew you, but I didn't. I think that was abundantly clear. I have no sympathy for you whatsoever because, like I told you last time, I find you disgusting. Besides, this is all your fault anyway. I get what you're trying to do here. You're throwing the same things I told you 6 months ago in my face. I'm sorry for saying all of that, but I really need you to be a little mature right now. I'm very mature right now. If I wasn't, I wouldn't have stuck around to listen to the rest of your sob story. How are you not freaking out? You invested in my business and you're going to lose a lot of money. Oh, sweetie, I sold my shares to your parents who were more than happy to buy off your entire company. You did what? Yeah, I didn't want any ties with you at all. They're going to be so mad. What have you done? You have to help me out now. I don't have to do anything for you because I don't care about you. You are nobody to me anymore. I wish you nothing but luck with figuring out where to go from here on. Bye. I couldn't believe that not only had my plan worked, But Alec had no idea that it was me who orchestrated the entire thing. Not to mention his parents are real sticklers about their money. They get very upset when they feel like they've lost money, and in this case, they've lost hundreds of thousands. I felt bad for them, but I also knew that they could afford a loss like that. Also, I knew for a fact that they would disown Alec, or at the very least refuse to help him out after his big blunder. I mean, what would he say to them? That he was a cheat and a fraud in both his marriage and his business? They'd throw him out for sure, and I was looking forward to it. It only took a few more days for Alec to reach out to me again and beg me to help him out. All the anger and hatred I had harbored against this man vanished, and I was filled with pure pity and disgust. You have to be very, very unaware of yourself to be as ignorant as Alec was. The irony of him using our relationship as a bargaining chip to get what he wanted when he threw me to the curb without a care of our relationship was hilarious. I finally began to heal when I saw Alec struggle. Oh yeah, also, that waitress he was cheating on me with, she left him as soon as the restaurant shut down. Apparently she was only with him for his money. That did make me laugh. How did I find out about all of this, though? Alec would keep texting me updates about his life in the hopes that I would feel bad enough to give in and help him out. But with every update he gave me, I felt only more right in my decision to leave him and never help him out in any capacity. I had been used by him for long enough, and I deserved better. Alec went to live with his parents, and they have him working in their company with no payoff to make up for all the money he lost them. As for me, I'm doing great. Life is finally starting to look colorful, and I'm no longer stressed out all the time. I'm going to use my newfound free time to focus on myself and finally give myself back the years I spent on that man-child Alec. Thank you so much for listening to my story. Hello, my name's Myra. I'm 31 years old. Before I tell you my story, let me just get this out of the way. I come from a very privileged background, and so does my husband. However, unlike my parents, we are grateful and appreciative of the opportunities that our wealth has given us. And we do not use our wealth as a reason to look down on others. Now, onto our revenge on my parents. Like I said, I come from a pretty wealthy family, but ours is not any generational wealth. My family lived in the middle class for a long time. My parents had their own jobs while simultaneously trying to run a company of their own. When I was 7, my parents decided to quit their day jobs and focus on their business. The next 3 to 4 years were the hardest years. There would be days when I would go to bed without having seen my parents at all during the day. They focused everything on their business. I held a grudge against them for neglecting me for the longest of times because, come on, you cannot possibly expect a child to fend for themselves at that age. But they made up for it when their business took off. In fact, they overdid it. Their business took off in a big way, and pretty soon we were swimming in money. My parents loved to attend these big elite parties that were meant only for the high-class socialites. These were torture to me, but I had no choice. I counted down the days till I turned 18 just so I could get out of staying any longer with my parents, because it didn't take long for them to become the very snobs they hated before they were rich. When I turned 18, I got into a great university in my state and I ran there. And that was where I met my husband Daniel. Now, at that time, neither of us dressed or acted like we were rich. We had a pure organic chemistry between us, and it was only after we were together for about 5 months that we told each other our backgrounds and were completely shocked about how our families ran in the same social circles, except his family was a lot richer than mine. Daniel's father, Cyril, was one of the richest men in our state. Cyril preferred to not expose his personal life to his professional one, so not a lot of people knew about his family. That explained why I didn't know Daniel. Not to mention, Daniel absolutely hated being famous, so he did his best to stay out of the spotlight. Anyway, we dated for around a year before we decided to introduce each other to our parents. We met his parents first, and they were lovely and very accepting of me. When it came time to meet my parents, we arranged to meet up at their favorite restaurant. "Hi, Mom. Hi, Dad. This is Daniel." "Hi, Daniel. I'm Norman, and this is my wife, Margot. It's a pleasure to meet you." "It's a pleasure to meet you too." "So, Daniel, what are you pursuing right now?" "I'm doing media and communication." "And what do you plan on doing with that?" "Mom, Dad, this isn't a job interview, so stop interrogating him." No, it's okay. I plan on becoming a social media manager." "Oh, that's a profession for sure." "Dad, there's no need to be so judgmental." "Tell me, Daniel, did you grow up in wealth?" "Mom, that is an incredibly offensive thing to ask." "Oh, so the answer is no. I mean, I could tell just by looking at him." "I don't mean to sound rude, but if you don't mind me asking, what does my wealth have anything to do with my relationship with Myra?" "Why, it's everything. We worked really hard to be able to give her a life filled with as many luxuries as she wanted. We don't want her to have to live like a peasant after she gets married." "That is enough. I don't care about any of that. I love Daniel, and that's all that matters. You're just young and naive. This relationship will end as soon as you realize that this man will never be able to afford your lifestyle." "Are you serious?" "Look, no offense to you, Daniel, but my daughter deserves better than you." "I don't know how you want me to not take offense to that." "Myra, there's this handsome man we met the other day at a party. He's a few years older, but hugely successful. We think you'll really like him. Do you want us to set you up with him?" "Wow! How dare you insult my boyfriend and also try to set me up with someone else while he's sitting next to me?" "Look, you have to realize that your relationships affect our reputation. You need to choose men that will not only benefit you, but will also benefit your reputation in society. Daniel won't do anything for you." "I've had enough. You passed your judgments on Daniel before even getting to know him." "I think we know his type enough." "He is not a type. He is a person with his own personality, qualities, and feelings. The fact that you can't see that because you're so blinded by your need to keep up with social status is disgusting. Do not bother to talk to me unless you want to apologize." "Myra, you will sit back down right this minute. You are causing a scene. See what this Daniel is doing to you? You never behaved like this before." "This is not Daniel's doing. I've just reached my limit with you too." I grabbed Daniel's hand and stormed out of the restaurant. I couldn't believe how fast they were in passing that judgment. They barely even got to know him and immediately marked him as some inferior being. I knew that I wanted nothing to do with them after that. I apologized to Daniel profusely after that, and Daniel told me that I had nothing to apologize for. He admitted that he knew he didn't look like he was rich, but he did not expect my parents to be like that. I agreed with him. I didn't speak to my parents unless I absolutely had to until I graduated. Daniel and I were still going strong, and we moved in together after graduating. We focused on our individual careers before taking any other step in our relationship. Daniel decided to work in a bunch of other places before going to work for his dad, just so he could get a feel of what the competition's like. That also helped him remain away from the spotlight for as long as he wanted. Eventually, my parents reached out to me and Daniel and apologized for being so rude to Daniel. We accepted their apology, but we still maintained low contact with them. I knew that they still did not accept Daniel, and they only apologized to keep up social appearances. Every once in a while, they'd invite Daniel and me to one of their parties, and we'd show up out of courtesy. And every time we attended, my mom would look Daniel up and down in disgust. He was wearing branded and expensive clothes, by the way, all brands that my parents loved to wear, except that his clothes weren't plastered with the brand logo all over them, so my parents thought they were cheap clothes. Anyways, after about 3 years from graduating college, Daniel proposed to me. I was overjoyed, and of course I said yes. We told his family about our engagement together, but I asked him if I could tell my parents about it alone. Deep down, I knew that they would say something mean, and I didn't want Daniel to hear it, so I went over to my parents' place for dinner one night and told them that I had something to tell them. So, I need to tell both of you something. Oh, please, for the love of God, tell me that you broke up with that pathetic boyfriend of yours. Actually, we're engaged. I'm going to marry him next spring. What? No, you're not. Well, I wasn't asking for your permission. You should have. You know how we feel about him. You don't like him because you think he doesn't have money. That's not a valid reason. If you marry him, you have to come to all of our events with him. Do you know how embarrassing that is? Do you care that much about your reputation? Does my happiness not matter at all? You have no idea how hard we worked to get where we are today. We sacrificed everything, and we'll be darned before we let a man of Daniel's status let us down. I know exactly how much you sacrificed. I was there. I had to live for years without my parents there for me. For people who look down on someone they think is in the middle class, you sure seem to forget that you were once there. And we overcame it. Daniel doesn't have the skills or the ability to work himself up anywhere. Why can't you just see that we want what's good for you? You don't want what's good for me. You just want what's good for you. Don't throw your issues at me. Look, we're very open-minded, but this is where we draw the line. We never imposed our opinions on you when you were dating Daniel because we just thought that the relationship was a fling. But this we cannot accept. That's a straight lie. You two are the least open-minded people I know. And you've done nothing but tell me how bad Daniel is for me for the entirety of my relationship. I don't care about whether you accept the fact that I'm marrying him because it's happening and you can't do anything about it. We can do something about it. If you marry this man, you will no longer be our daughter. Wow. So you'll disown me if I don't listen to you? You'd rather disown your daughter to save your social status than be happy that she's happy? That is not it at all. We want what's best for you, and if you can't see it, then I see no reason why we should support you. I'd like to see how your poor husband will support you. He's done way more for me than the two of you ever did. How dare you? We gave you this life. Don't you dare say that we didn't do the best for you. While I am grateful for everything you did, neither of you ever cared about my happiness. Daniel makes me so happy, and I want to spend the rest of my life with him. So go ahead, disown me. Lord knows I'll be happier that way, because believe me, I cannot stand going to any more of your obnoxious parties. I'd like to see how this happiness of yours pays the bills, and don't you dare come to us when you need any help with money, because we will not help. I'd rather be drowning in poverty than come to you guys for help. I left my parents' place immediately. I was fuming, yet at the same time I was so incredibly hurt. I was not stupid enough to believe that my parents would readily just accept him, but what I was stupid enough to believe was that my parents experienced some change in the past 3 years and maybe some observation of how I was with Daniel. They would be more open to just accepting that Daniel is an integral part of my life. I drove away and parked a few blocks away before finally letting myself cry. I know I love to put on a tough act, but they were still my parents. Sure, they were snobby and they could be really mean, but I still loved them. And it hurt to see that their love for me was so conditional. That is literally the one thing that parents aren't supposed to have: conditional love. I eventually made my way back home and let Daniel comfort me. He was incredibly mad at my parents and asked me if I wanted him to do something about it. I didn't want him to do anything against my parents because I saw no reason to become just like them to prove a point. I decided then and there that the best way to get back at my parents was to live happily. That was what they didn't think I was capable of, so I would prove them wrong. Daniel and I spent the next few months having the time of our lives as we planned our wedding. On the day of the wedding, I was the happiest girl alive. Daniel asked his dad, Cyril, to keep our marriage a private affair because he didn't like the limelight, and neither did I. Cyril was happy enough to do that, although he spoiled us rotten with some of the most expensive gifts as compensation. After we got married, Daniel took up a permanent role at his father's company and became the head of the social media marketing team. Not to brag, but Daniel was bringing in loads of money, especially because he was bringing more attention to the company. I was also advancing pretty far in my career, and I was doing great. I didn't speak to my parents at all, not only because I didn't want to, but also because they never reached out to apologize. Over the next 5 years, Daniel and I only had a great time. We were doing amazing in our careers, and our social lives were also doing well. Daniel was slowly warming up to the idea of becoming a part of the limelight, and so we began attending a lot more parties that were arranged for the high socialites. At these parties, we would run into a few of my parents' friends who would ask me about them, and Daniel would reply and subtly imply that they weren't the kindest of people. Now, this was just a petty move that we didn't think would have any impact, but apparently it did, because my parents were slowly being shunned by their social circles. The only reason I knew that it was working was because I met them at Daniel's sister's engagement party. Daniel's sister wanted a big, extravagant party for only the most elite of society and made it a very exclusive party. Daniel and I were obviously invited, and we happened to run into my parents there. Myra, Daniel, what on earth are you two doing here? Well, we got an invite and we thought it would have been pretty rude to not show up. How did you get an invite to this party? This is an engagement party for business tycoon and millionaire Cyril Reed. Are you sure you're at the right place? We're sure we're at the right place. Now, if you'll excuse us, we have places to be and people to socialize with. No, hold on. How did you both get invited here? This is a party only for the elites of our city. And last time I checked, you barely even came close to middle class. Do you really have no shame putting your daughter down like that? What daughter? This could have been you, but you gave it all up for this creature. Wait, that's it. Myra must have got an invite in our name, and then Daniel made you not tell us and instead take him with you. That would explain why he had to go around practically begging to get in here. Do you really think I'd want to attend any party if I got the invite for you? Sure, I wouldn't pass the invite on, but I would never attend the party because that would mean that the people there would all be rich snobs just like you. Okay, that's enough. You will tell us how you got these invites or we will call security on you. The chances that two of you just crashed into this event are too high. I mean, what more do you expect from the lower classes? Hi there. What is this I'm hearing? Is my son causing any trouble? Son? Yes, this is my boy, Daniel. Oh, these two were just accusing my wife and I of crashing this event because we were part of a lower class who was only capable of doing things like that. Oh no, that's not what we meant. But I do want to know how Daniel is your son. You don't have the same last name. Yes, my wife wanted him to have her last name. Feminism and all that. Anyway, he's my pride and joy. He's a fine young man. I would ruin anyone that hurts him in any way. So, do we have a problem here? Only one. Why do Daniel and his wife not have glasses of champagne in their hands? I like that. They can get their glasses of champagne along with me. I need them to meet a few people. Excuse me." The look of absolute shock and horror on my parents' faces made Daniel and I laugh as we walked away. Cyril knew of my parents and their views about his son, but once again, out of respect for me, he never said a word. He only came on between our conversations with my parents as a petty act of asserting dominance. Daniel and I enjoyed the rest of the night and made sure to celebrate his sister and her fiancé to the fullest. We socialized a lot, and I actually ended up making some really good friends. I was finally free of my parents' snobby behavior, and I felt great. Daniel and I tried our best to stay out of my parents' way, but that didn't work for too long. Towards the middle of the event, my parents found us and came up to us to talk. "Hey, guys! Could we talk for just a few minutes?" "Oh, I don't know. My dad expects me to be there with him." "Yeah, about that. How come you never told us who your dad was?" "I didn't see why I had to." "Besides, you already made up your mind about him, so was there really any use of him telling you who his father was?" "Of course there is. Do you even know how much power that man has?" "Wait a minute. Is this why we've been slowly getting fewer invitations to various social events?" "How would we know?" "Are you really ruining our lives because we didn't know whose son you were?" "No, that's not why. You treated us like we were lowlives, just because you assumed that we were part of the middle or lower class. That is unacceptable, and we see no reason for you to have any sort of social life until you prove yourselves to be better people." "Who are you to decide that? You return us back to our previous status, or else." "Or else what? You're going to try and ruin our name? Good luck doing that." "Hold on. We're sorry. We called you over here just so we could talk to you and apologize, and we're letting our negative emotions get in the way. We shouldn't have treated you that way. Daniel, could we make it up to you in any way?" "Oh, you most definitely could. I want you to leave my sister's engagement party right this minute." "What? But we worked so hard to get the invites to this event." "I worked hard to show you that I cared and loved your daughter, and instead you rewarded me by not only treating me poorly but also disowning your daughter? My father is a kind and genuine man, and he would hate to know that such vile people attended an event of his." "Just give us some time to change. I promise we'll be better people." "The time to prove yourself has long since passed. Get out, or I will have security come get you. And you know how people will start talking when they see security escorting you out." "You're a cruel person." "I'm definitely not as cruel as you. Now get out." I was in awe of the way that Daniel stood up for himself. I knew that he was only holding himself back because he didn't want to humiliate my parents out of respect for me. But if there was one thing he hated more than anything in the world, it was people who treated others based on what they would get in return. And that is the textbook definition of what my parents are like. My parents thankfully left the event without another word. They knew better than to have any more attention drawn to them. My parents texted me after they left to apologize for the way that they treated Daniel. Once again, they were only apologetic because they didn't know who he was. They still did not see the wrong in their ways, and that only made me madder. I could understand how some people could be so dense and ignorant. That was the reason why I didn't stop Daniel from doing what he did after. It didn't take long for people, especially my parents' friends, to notice that my parents weren't around at the party. They would ask me, and Daniel would reply. He'd tell them about how he kicked them out and why he did so. People were horrified to learn what my parents were really like. A lot of them stopped associating with them afterwards. My parents barely saw invitations to any place else after that party. They called Daniel and begged him many times to make things right for them. They apologized in many ways, but Daniel stood firm in his decision. He'd given them years to be nicer, but they didn't care to. He saw no reason for them to not suffer for just a little while. My parents' company began to slowly lose out on revenue. Their company depended on these events because they would be the ones supplying most of the things and services required for these events. And since they had become a pariah, nobody wanted to tarnish their own reputation by associating with them. When they realized that they were losing money, my parents stopped begging us and began cursing us. They would send us long, hateful texts outlining why I'm such a disappointment to them and how I ruined our family. It hurt at first, but at the same time it felt great to finally put my parents back in their place. As for Daniel and I, we're doing great. We pretty much went back to living our lives as normally as we could after the event and barely bothered to bat my parents and I. We're planning on taking a vacation to Spain within the next 2 weeks, just to have a change of pace and symbolize the start of a new beginning for us, one without my parents involved. Hi guys, welcome to everyone who has come here to read my small story. Before I start, I must warn you that I will be talking about my infertility here, and the things that my sister-in-law Ava said were downright nasty. So consider this a trigger warning if you have trauma related to infertility. So let me begin by saying that Aidan is my husband and the absolute love of my life. We really have a strong marriage and great careers. We were happy and had everything in life except for just one thing. We wanted kids but somehow couldn't have them. After numerous rounds of tests, I found out that I am infertile. The news devastated us, especially since we both wanted kids. Thankfully, my mother-in-law, Deanna, was a great support during our tough time. We thought that my sister-in-law, Ava, was too, until she decided to say something unthinkable. It was just a week after I discovered that I was infertile. I was in a really dark place, so Aidan invited his mother and sister over to offer us support. They both came and we were genuinely happy to have family around during these tough times. Ava, who has been a single mother since her husband passed away, also made time to support us, although she had a very different agenda in mind when she came to visit. That became very clear when she said, "I can't believe Aidan will never have kids now. It's so sad that he's perfectly capable of having kids but can't because of your infertility." I feel terrible about it, Ava. I don't know why this happened to me. I wish things were different. We really wanted a family. What can you do, Sky? This is all a part of God's plan. You know, God only blesses the best mothers with children. What is that supposed to mean, Ava? You know, the fact that I have 3 kids while you can't even have 1 kid really says everything. God knew that I would be a good mother, so he showered me with kids. But he must have known that you were a bad candidate to be a mother, so he didn't give you any. Ava's horrible words literally made me burst into tears. I was crying my eyes out while she was straight out smirking at me. Her words really hurt me, and I didn't even know what to say. I was already pretty vulnerable, and this meeting was supposed to make me feel supported and loved. Instead, Ava took this opportunity to hurt me when I was down. I just couldn't stop crying from the emotional hit that Ava dished out. Aidan was super furious on my behalf and stormed at Ava, saying, "What in the world is wrong with you, Ava? Are you saying that my wife is being punished because she can't be a good mother? How can you even say those things to her?" "Well, I'm not wrong. Think about it carefully, Aidan. Why else would Sky turn out to be barren? You really landed an unlucky woman." "You have to be kidding me, Ava. You were being extremely disrespectful towards Sky. You need to apologize to her right now." "I have nothing to apologize for, Drew. I'm just spitting out facts. Sky probably deserves to be barren. It's God's work, after all." "That is enough, Ava. I will not have you insult my wife anymore. You are crossing all limits." Now, one would think that this was Ava's cue to shut the hell up. Both her mother and her brother were telling her to stop talking. Hell, my mother-in-law even asked her to apologize to me, but no. This is Ava we are talking about. She does whatever she wants with no regard for anyone else. So instead of shutting up, she amped up her nonsense and said some worse things. She said, "Calm down, Aidan. Your anger is uncalled for. As I said, I am simply stating facts. It's not my fault that the truth is unsavory. I called you here because we needed your support and love in these tough times. But you were just making things worse with your horrible mentality." "Aidan, I have come to support you. I know how much you wanted kids. It's already breaking my heart to know that. Mom, you agree with me, right?" "They can always adopt kids, Ava. You need to encourage them and support them instead of being so awful." "Mom, you don't understand. Aidan needs to have biological children. Adopted children just won't cut it." "What the hell do you mean, Ava?" "Listen, Aidan, I'm also here to give you some advice. You need to rethink this marriage and leave Sky. She obviously can't give you kids. She is utterly useless as a wife. You need to find someone who can give you biological children." Believe me, guys, all three of us were shocked into silence. I couldn't believe my ears that Ava was straight up telling my husband to leave me because I was infertile. Aidan and Deanna were shocked to their core. Their faces showed it all. I probably mirrored their expression as well. I was inching towards a bigger mental breakdown and could feel my control slipping. I hung my head in my hands and cried. Meanwhile, Aidan started to yell at Ava and said, "How dare you suggest that I leave my wife? You have the audacity to come to my house and insult my wife in front of everyone. You are a monster, Ava." "Oh God, you really need to get your anger in check, Aidan. I'm only looking out for you. Instead of wasting your life on this barren woman, you should find someone better." "What the hell is wrong with you, Ava? When did you become so cruel? I didn't raise you like this." Ava seemed annoyed at their scolding and refused to accept that she was wrong. So guess what she did? She turned to me and started to address me directly. She said, "My mom and bro are trying so hard not to hurt your feelings, Sky, but you must know the truth, right? You really need to leave my brother. Let him have a good life. Even if you adopt kids, you won't be able to be a good mother. I just know it." "I can't believe you can be so cruel, Ava. You have no regard for others and their feelings. Don't you feel even a little bit of empathy for me?" "Why would I? It's not my fault that you can't have kids. It's all God's doing, I'm telling you." "You need to leave, Ava. I can't be around you right now." Ava started to get annoyed and was refusing to leave my house. She even got agitated and started to victimize herself, saying that I was kicking her out for telling the truth. But her attempts at victimizing herself didn't work at all. Instead, Aidan and Deanna actually forced her to leave the house. They were extremely pissed off at her and needed her to shut up as soon as possible. After Ava was gone, I cried into my husband's shoulder while he comforted me. He was also very pissed and wanted to seriously end all contact with Ava. He was trying very hard to assure me that he would never leave me, and Ava was just spewing lies. My mother-in-law also stayed back and comforted me along with my husband. It was because of them that I slowly started to feel better again, but the rage inside me hadn't died down. So when Aidan said that he wanted to cut off Ava, I agreed with him and said, "I don't want to be around Ava anymore, Aidan. What she did today was horrible. I don't think I can even look at her anymore. I guess it's better if we go no contact with her for a while, like you said." "I'm glad you agree with me, Sky. We don't need Ava's toxic presence in our lives anymore. It's just her kids that I'm worried about. I don't know if we should cut them off too." "Aidan, Sky, please don't cut Ava off from your lives, at least not for now. The kids really need you. Actually, you have no idea how much your nieces and nephews need you right now." "Mom, believe me, it hurts us to cut contact with them, but we just can't have Ava's toxic presence in our lives anymore." Deanna went quiet for a while. I was really starting to think that maybe she agreed with her daughter. Maybe she wanted me to divorce her son as well. My paranoia was getting the best of me, and I was really starting to have another mental breakdown. But I wasn't ready for Deanna to have that breakdown. Instead, guys, my strong and sassy mother-in-law started to cry out of the blue. She had her head in her hands and was bawling. Aidan and I were pretty surprised by her behavior. We didn't know what to think of her reaction. It was already a pretty shitty day considering Ava's horrible behavior, but Deanna's behavior was now becoming very concerning. I looked at my husband and signaled him to help his mom regain control over her emotions. We gave her a few seconds to calm down and then said, "Is something wrong, Deanna? You had an intense reaction to what we said." "Mom, what happened? Are you really that upset that we want to cut Ava off?"
"It's not what you think, guys. It's just that I don't want you to stop interacting with the kids. They need you. They need you more than you probably know."
"Mom, what are you talking about? You're scaring us now."
"Guys, there's something that I have been hiding from you. I should have talked about these a long time ago, but I had hoped Ava would change. But after the way she's behaved today, I can tell that she sees nothing wrong with herself."
"What happened, Deanna? You need to tell us. We will do whatever we can to help." Deanna looked at me with a very pained expression on her face. Her health was already declining, and she had been losing weight. We had noticed that she had been weary and sad for a couple of weeks, but we thought maybe it was because of her health. But now, looking into her eyes, I knew that her weariness was not because of her own health. She looked weary and a little scared. She said,
"Sky, I need to apologize to you on behalf of my daughter. What she said wasn't true at all. I hope you know that. You're not a bad mother. In fact, I think you can be a great mom if you find it in your heart to adopt a child."
"Thank you for your kind words, Deanna. It means a lot to me."
"My daughter is also wrong about another thing. She is not the best mother. She is the complete opposite of that. I was ashamed to hear what she said."
"Mom, what's going on? Why are you calling Ava a bad mother? You sound very serious."
"Because it is serious, Aidan. I didn't want you to cut off Ava, not because I think she was right. I didn't want you to cut her off because I needed you to keep an eye on the kids."
"Why, Deanna? What's wrong with the kids? Tell us right now."
"Ava has been physically abusing the kids and starving them as punishment. It's been going on for a while now."
Aidan and I were completely shocked by this information. We simply couldn't comprehend the fact that Ava was being so cruel towards her own kids. Deanna's words sent a wave of shock through us. Aidan was open-mouthed when he stared at his mom while she cried. I got out of the shock first and said, "What are you talking about, Deanna? Are you sure this is the case? It's a little difficult for us to wrap our heads around this information."
"I found it difficult to accept the first two. That's why I never said this to anyone, but now I know I have to speak."
"Mom, do you know for sure? Is Ava abusing the kids?"
"Yes, Aidan. It all started when I noticed bruises on my eldest grandchild. She was scared and didn't know what to say when I asked. God, Aidan, she was so scared. She begged me not to tell Ava that I saw the bruises. I asked the other kids later and everyone said the same story."
"Did you talk to Ava about this? She really needs someone to talk to her."
"Aidan, I tried to talk to her. I told her that I saw the bruises and that what she did wasn't okay. She just screamed at me and told me to mind my own business. She did promise not to do it again after I pestered her, but since then she has refused to let me see the kids. I cannot imagine what the kids are going through now. I didn't push the issue because I knew you guys visited and didn't find anything amiss. If you guys cut off Ava, I don't know how I will keep track of the kids."
We let Deanna spill her heart out. It was downright gruesome. She detailed some of their bruises, and I literally wanted to throw up. Ava was nothing short of a monster. I was so mad with rage and worry that I wanted to go to her house and shake some sense into her.
Aidan looked like a volcano about to burst. He looked at Deanna and said, "Why didn't you tell us sooner? Hell, we could have paid closer attention to the kids for signs of abuse." "I'm so sorry, Aidan. You and Sky were stressed out about your fertility problems, and I didn't want to disturb you anymore. I guess I also didn't want to believe that my own daughter could be so heartless towards my grandchildren." "You've done the right thing by telling us, Deanna. No matter what situation we are in, we will always be available for family. Please remember that, Deanna." "Thanks for saying that, Sky. But how do we proceed from here? I don't want you two to go through Ava's verbal abuse, but I also don't want the kids to get isolated." Now, this was seriously a place for concern. We were stuck in a stalemate and didn't know what to do. Deanna was right. If we continued to stay in contact with Ava, we would have to tolerate her verbal abuse. However, if we decide to cut her off, we will be leaving the kids to suffer whatever abuse she dishes them out. The problem was far from simple, and we immediately needed to come up with a solution. So I said, "Deanna, we will continue to stay in contact with Ava." "Are you sure about that, Sky? I can't see you break down over her insensitivity again. I don't want you to go through that. Maybe I can visit the kids and keep an eye on them." "No, Aidan. This should be a group effort. I think we should continue visiting her and keeping check on the kids. It's important to know if Ava is still abusing them." "I have a sinking feeling that she hasn't changed at all. The way she proudly declared herself to be the best mother just proves this. In that case, we need to gather evidence against her. She will never listen to us, Deanna. We need to report her to CPS to save the kids. If we push her too much, she will cut us off and isolate the kids. God knows what will happen after that." "I agree with Sky, Mom. We need to get to the bottom of this and end her abuse for good. The kids deserve this much from us." Deanna looked sad but agreed with our plan. She didn't want to think the worst of her daughter, but she knew how stubborn and irrational she could be, so she gave us the heads up to execute this plan. For a whole month, Aidan and I visited Ava and her kids to gather as much evidence as possible. We were right in assuming that she never stopped abusing the kids. We found bruises in concealed places, and the kids didn't appear to be the happy and energetic children that they should be at their age. It was very concerning, and we knew we had to act fast. One day, we took the kids out for ice cream because Ava wanted some alone time. We gently asked the kids to tell us everything, and oh boy, the eldest kid broke down in the car. She cried and cried till she couldn't speak anymore. That was our cue to end this charade once and for all. Do you think that we returned the kids to Ava and confronted her about her abuse? Oh no, we didn't do anything of the sort. Instead, we drove straight to the police station and called CPS on our way too. The kids told everything to the cops after we encouraged them. Guys, I can't even tell you the horrific details of what Ava was doing to the kids. They were downright awful. It broke mine and Aidan's heart to know how much they had suffered. The cops decided then and there that Ava would get arrested for child abuse and neglect. While they wrapped up the paperwork, Aidan and I went to Ava's house. When she didn't see the kids with us, she said, "Where are my kids? Why haven't you brought them back?" "You will not have your kids back, Ava. We know what you've been doing to them." "What do you mean, Aidan? This is just ridiculous." Ava was acting as if she had no idea what we were talking about. However, her voice had an edge of nervousness and she was shaking like a leaf. But her nonchalance and feigned ignorance was making us even angrier. Aidan absolutely stormed at her and said, "Do you think feigning ignorance will work on us? Your kids are riddled with bruises, Ava. We know that you have been abusing them. You even accepted that in front of Mom. What I do with my kids is none of your business. You are the one to tell me how I should parent my kids." "That's where you're wrong, Ava. Your kids are our nieces and nephews. We care about their well-being too. What you are doing is not okay." You better keep your mouth shut, Sky. You are a barren woman who shouldn't have any right to tell me how to parent my kids. You don't have maternal instincts, which is why God made you infertile. So you better keep your mouth shut. There it was again. Ava would take any chance to humiliate me. I had no idea how she could act so shamelessly even after being caught. She was acting as if what she did was no big deal. The audacity of this woman is just astounding. Aidan was getting angrier by the second, and I actually had to hold him back from unleashing on his sister. I calmly looked at her and said, Ava, you really are the prime example of how not all mothers deserve to have children. If you still think what you did was not wrong, you have another thing coming. Also, insulting me won't be of much help once your own actions catch up to you. Oh, really, Sky? What are you going to do? They are my kids and I can do whatever I want with them. If you have a problem, I will just make sure they never visit you again. Now, return my kids before I call the cops. Go ahead and call them, Ava. Also, you know what? There is no need to call the cops after all. They'll be here soon. I'm pretty sure they're on their way. Ava looked like she had seen a ghost. She never entertained the possibility of us calling the cops on her. She kept looking between me and Aidan to understand if we were threatening her or had really called the cops. She wasn't ignorant after all. She knew well enough that her parenting could get her in trouble with the law. She was now shaking while her smug attitude melted into fear. She said, No, you're just lying to intimidate me. You haven't called the cops on me. Aidan, tell me you haven't called the cops on your own sister. Oh, yes, we did, Ava. Sky's right. The cops are probably on their way here as of now. Just a few more minutes and you will have a shiny police car in front of your house. How could you do this to me, Aidan? How could you do this to your own sister? I will call Mom. I'll tell her what you've done. Go ahead and call her, Ava. She already knows what's up. In fact, she was the one who gave us the heads up about your abuse. No. What have you done, Aidan? I may lose the kids. My kids will be taken away. Well, looks like you're not the best mom after all. You insulted me, and now I guess God is punishing you for that. I guess you were right after all. God does have a plan for everything. Ava's eyes went wide as I threw back her own words. She never expected her own words to come to haunt her. Despite what many people may think, I never planned for things to turn out this way. I never wanted revenge. I was only doing what was best for my innocent nieces and nephews. It's only a bonus that I got to see Ava eat her own words. I won't lie, but it was a rather satisfying experience. I would have enjoyed it if I wasn't so worried about the kids. Before Ava could throw any more jibes at me, the cops arrived and arrested her. I don't know who posted her bail because her family never did. I guess it might be one of her friends. Anyway, while the investigation was underway, the kids stayed with us. They were relieved to be away from their mother, which is saying a lot. CPS took away her children and placed them with us because Deanna's health problems made her an unfit guardian. Ava got supervised visits, but it was a hassle to make the kids agree to see her. They were severely traumatized and didn't want to see their mom. In the end, they didn't have to for long because Ava went to jail for child abuse. She's about to lose her kids, and we have been thinking about getting full custody and making her terminate her rights. Things are still underway on that, but we will see what happens. For now, the kids are doing great, and I am glad I could help them out while getting some revenge against Ava.